There's something about unsolved crimes that's a little bit titillating, a little too enjoyable. You might be the most normal person in the world with no particular interest in murder or disembowelment or serial killing as a hobby. But there's something about crimes that not even the brightest minds have been able to solve that just draws you in, just close enough to make you grimace. In this episode, we're going to talk about one of the most culturally rich countries in the world and one of the most prolific countries when it comes to the royal etiquette, but one that also doesn't lag behind in the unsolved mysteries and crime department. Yes, we're talking about the land of tea and the Queen, England. But before diving in, please hit the red subscribe button and click the bell icon to get notified of every new video we post. So, without any further wait, here we go. Number 10. Jill Dando. Perhaps one of the most famous unsolved cases is the murder of Jill Dando. The former Crime Watch presenter was shot dead, age 37, outside her flat in Fulham, West London in 1999. Miss Dando was shot once in the head. Neighbors found her slumped against her front door in a pool of blood. A blue Range Rover that had been parked on the street where Jill lived on Gowan Avenue was captured on CCTV driving away at speed from the murder scene. The murder prompted an enormous inquiry by Scotland Yard and resulted in unemployed loner Barry George being jailed for her murder in July 2001. He was granted a retrial on appeal and received a unanimous acquittal by a jury in August 2008 after a retrial. It has long been suspected that the 38-year-old died at the hands of a professional assassin. The Metropolitan Police have not been able to crack the case in almost a decade since George's release. The Metropolitan Police said in a recent statement, "The Metropolitan Police Service fully investigated the circumstances into the murder of Jill Dando. 2 trials took place and the investigation was subject to an internal review. If any new information comes to our attention, then this will be investigated." Number 9. Susie Lamplu. Susie Lamplu, 25, disappeared after leaving her office to show a man known as Mr. Kipper around a house in Fulham, West London in 1986. Her Ford Fiesta car was recovered on the day she went missing, about a mile away. She was declared dead, presumed murdered, 8 years later in 1994. She was last spotted by an eyewitness arguing with the man on Sherald Road in Fulham before getting in a car with him. Convicted sex killer John Cannon, who has been interviewed several times in connection with the case, remains a prime suspect in the investigation into Susie's death. 3 days before she vanished, Cannon was released from a hostel at Wormswood Scrubs prison, where he had been serving a 6-year sentence for rape. He was jailed for life in 1989 for the rape and murder of newlywed Shirley Banks in Bristol. The spotlight was shown most recently on Cannon in October last year when detectives pulled up a patio at his mother Sheila's former home in Sutton Coldfield. At the time, the suburban home's current owner revealed that 15 years ago, a police team spent 6 months searching the patio at the other end of the same backyard. Despite a search of the property lasting around 2 weeks, no evidence was recovered. Cannon is still seeing out his rape and murder sentence, but he cannot face trial for Susie's murder while her body is still missing. Number 8. Eve Stratford. Eve Stratford, who worked as a bunny girl at the Playboy Club in London's Park Lane, was raped and killed in her home on the evening of March 18, 1975. She was found with her throat slashed by her boyfriend Tony Priest, the lead singer with the pop band Onyx. The 22-year-old glamour model's throat had been slashed between 8 and 12 times. Detectives believe she may have known her killer and invited him into the flat she shared with Tony. 6 months after Eve's death, Lynn Weldon, 16, was brutally attacked and raped in an alleyway near her home in Hounslow at 11 p.m. on September 3rd. She died after being found barely alive at an electricity substation the next day. Former Met Police Detective Colin Sutton believes a third woman, Linda Farrow, who was knifed to death in her home 4 years later in 1979, was also a victim of the same killer. Eve and Lynn's murders were linked in 2007 after matching DNA was discovered on the victims who did not know each other. The Met Police have confirmed that there are no recent updates into her death. Number 7. Melanie Hall. Melanie Hall, 25, disappeared on a night out in Bath, Somerset in 9 June 1996, and her remains were found dumped by a motorway 13 years later by a workman cleaning undergrowth. Miss Hall, a clerical worker at the Royal United Hospital in Bath, Somerset, vanished after spending an evening at Cadillac's nightclub in the city. She was last seen at 1:10 a.m., sitting on a stool on the edge of the dance floor at the nightclub on Walcott Street, which has since been named Club XL. In March 2014, police appealed for information about a white Golf GTI with links to the Pentham area of Cardiff, which they thought has significance to the inquiry. A 45-year-old man, who has not been identified, was arrested on suspicion of her murder in June 2016 after voluntarily attending a police station in Wiltshire asking to speak to the inquiry team. But police announced in September the same year that he had been released without charge. His arrest came after Melanie's parents offered £50,000 of their own money as a reward for information on the 20th anniversary of her death. Detective Superintendent Sarah Davenport of Avon and Somerset Police appealed for information into her murder in a recent statement. The statement read, "Unsolved murder cases are never closed. They are subject to regular reviews to check whether new techniques, such as advances in DNA technology, can be used to generate further lines of inquiry. We're extremely grateful to the public for any help they can provide us, and we often receive calls with new information, even on some of our oldest unsolved cases." The disappearance and murder of Melanie Hall remains unsolved. Her killer or killers need to be brought to justice to help give her family some form of closure. I would urge anyone with information on who killed Melanie or why she was killed to come forward now. Even the most seemingly insignificant piece of information could be the key to solving this case. Number 6. Debbie Linsley. Debbie Linsley, 26, was found dead on March 23, 1988, on a train traveling from Orpington in Bromley, Greater London, when it arrived at London Victoria Station. Miss Linsley, a hotel manager in Edinburgh, had been visiting her parents and brother, Gordon, ahead of his wedding. She boarded the train at Petswood, southeast London, and sat in an old-fashioned 6-person compartment with doors at each side of the carriage. A French au pair is said to have heard screaming after the train left Brixton in South London. It arrived at Platform 2 at around 2:50 p.m. Her body was discovered on the floor by Bristol rail staff. She is believed to have been murdered with a 5-inch to 7-inch knife, which was never recovered by police. More than 1,200 statements were taken and over 650 people eliminated as potential suspects during the investigation, with no one ever being charged.